After inheriting 33M, my daughter exiled me just 3 days later, she returned, crying for my help. Jack stood in the humble auto repair shop he had worked in for nearly 20 years. The scent of oil and grease filled the air, mixing with the faint whir of tools in his hand. He always liked to think of himself as a craftsman, not just a mechanic. But today, as his fingers fiddled with the hood of a rusting sedan, he was less the proud father than a weary soul. His beloved Lily, his light, his hope had always basked in simplicity, yet his mind now lingered on the unimaginable fortune he had just inherited. $33 million from a relative he'd barely known. It felt so unreal, so foreign to his working-class upbringing. This money, Jack believed, was the answer. He could finally lift the weight of financial strain from their shoulders and perhaps mend the rift that years of hardship had created between him and Lily. Yet, on the third day after the announcement, the dream shattered into fragments when she stormed into the shop, her face twisted in a storm of anger. Jack's heart dropped. "Dad!" she exclaimed, venom dripping from her words. "I can't believe you. This inheritance, this money, it's changed everything." She turned on her heels, her usual warmth replaced by an icy chill, leaving him gasping for breath. The days melted away. Each morning brought the same stale emptiness. The shop felt more like a cage than ever before. Jack worked mechanically, hoping that maybe the town would help him weave back together what had unraveled with Lily. But the locals whispered. "Did you hear about the mechanic's jackpot?" they said, voices laced with envy. Jack could feel them watching. It was suffocating. Over in her world, Lily spiraled deeper into chaos. The friends that surrounded her were nothing but opportunists, all drawn to the glimmer of his newfound wealth. She felt trapped, snared by the fortune that was supposed to have set her free. Thoughts of her future, bright with promise, dimmed under the weight of expectation. It hurt her to see how far she had strayed from the strong woman she had aspired to be. Tears streamed down her cheeks more often than laughter escaped her lips. Then one evening, after yet another long day, Jack was surprised to hear a knock on the shop door. He opened it cautiously, his heart racing. There stood Lily, her mascara running and her face radiating pain. She looked younger, smaller, as if the weight of the world had been too much for her. Her lips quivered as she whispered, "Dad, I need you." In that moment, Jack felt a mix of pride and a crushing ache. It was the first time in days that his chest didn't feel tight. He invited her inside, their eyes locking, silently echoing love, heartache, and the scars they had both endured. Yet, the walls built by money still loomed, a reminder of their fracture. As they hesitated at the threshold of reconciliation, uncertainty loomed heavy in the air. How could they rebuild trust after so much pain? The past felt like a bitter ghost haunting them, eager to remind them of their misunderstandings. Could they truly redefine their bond? Or were they destined to let the ties of money tear them apart? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As they began to speak, the words poured out like a river, and Jack could feel hope flickering back into existence. They each stepped forward, and yet, the unexpected revelation about their family's past lurked in the shadows. It was time to confront everything they had thought they knew about love, loyalty, and the definition of true richness. Would this journey bring them together or tear them apart once more? Jack took a breath, his heart pounding as he and Lily stood in the dim light of the repair shop. The tension was palpable, thick enough to slice. "Lily," he started, his voice barely above a whisper. I didn't want this to ruin us. I thought it could help." "Help?" She shot back, her pain morphing into anger. "This money is a burden, not a blessing. All I see are people using me, Dad. Friends I thought I could trust are just waiting to cash in." Her words sliced through him, igniting an old fear he had buried with the years of toil. Was wealth really the enemy? Jack sank against a nearby toolbox, overwhelmed. I never wanted any of this for you, he admitted. I wanted to give you a chance at a better life, a life without worry. I thought maybe you'd see it differently. Lily's eyes shimmered with unshed tears. A better life? What do you know about that? All you've done is build walls between us. Jack could feel the ache intensifying, the years of strained silence spilling over. It's not the money, Lily. It was the struggle that pushed us apart. Silence filled the space, broken only by the ticking clock on the wall. The weight of their unspoken worries hung heavily between them, but slowly, the anger began to fade. Jack reached out his hand, offering her a lifeline. What if we face this together? What if we find a way to deal with this mess? Lily hesitated, searching his eyes for sincerity. You really want to help? After everything that happened? I do, Jack said earnestly. Let us talk to each other. Let us figure out how to move forward, together. Her expression softened as she grasped his hand, the connection reigniting something that felt lost. But Dad, what if the truth about this inheritance is worse than we thought? His heart lurched at her words. What do you mean? What if there are conditions? What if it has strings attached? I overheard people talking, you know. This money, it could uncover things about our family that we never wanted to know. Jack felt a shiver. Was there a darkness lurking in the inheritance? Something beyond the shiny facade of wealth? The prospect felt unsettling, but Lily was right, truth could sting, but deception could cut deeper. Let us find out together, he insisted. Whatever it is, we'll face it head on. As they locked eyes once more, a fragile hope surged. They could rebuild. Thanks, Dad, she murmured softly, moving closer. I've missed you. Jack smiled, feeling warmth spread through his chest. They were still tethered, their bond waiting to heal. But just as relief washed over him, the front door swung open, and a man stepped inside. He had an air about him, one that felt oddly familiar yet unsettling. Excuse me, he said, scanning the shop before resting his eyes on Jack. Are you Jack Moretti? We need to talk. It's about the inheritance. Jack's stomach dropped as dread settled in. What could this stranger want? It was as if the past had come crashing back in, eager to drag them under the weight of secrets. Who are you? Jack demanded, glancing at Lily, whose face was pale with apprehension. I'm with the estate, the man replied casually. And there are some issues you ought to know about. Jack knew in that moment that this was the beginning of something neither of them had anticipated. What other truths lay hidden? Would they be strong enough to face the revelations to come? The man's piercing gaze felt like it could cut through the dim light of the shop. Jack shifted uncomfortably, the toolbox pressing into his back, as he tried to process the stranger's words. He could see Lily's fingers tighten around his own. What kind of issues? Jack asked, his voice steady. He forced himself to meet the man's eyes, searching for any hint of reassurance. Let's just say, the man began, his tone clipped, the money comes with conditions you may not have been expecting. There are stipulations that could impact how it affects both your lives. Jack felt the blood drain from his face. What sort of stipulations? Panic seeped into his voice, flipping through a mental checklist of what could be at stake. The dreams he had for Lily, their potential future, could it all be dashed? The man's lips curved slightly, not quite a smile, but not entirely unfriendly. Let us discuss this somewhere private. He gestured towards the door, as if implying the small repair shop wasn't the right place for such matters. Lily glanced up at Jack, her expression a mixture of fear and fire. What do you want to do? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Jack took a deep breath, wrestling with his instincts. He was used to facing challenges head-on, but the look in this man's eyes made him hesitate. He didn't want to scare Lily, but they had to know the truth. Let us hear him out. When they stepped outside, the sun was low in the sky, casting long shadows. The late afternoon light felt oddly warm, not a matching contrast to Jack's rising unease. The stranger led them to a nearby bench, setting a few feet between them. "Call me Mark," he introduced himself, taking a seat across from them. "Your late uncle was quite the character. The money you inherited isn't just a windfall, it's wrapped in family law that complicates things." Jack felt his heart race. "What do you mean?" "There are conditions for receiving the full inheritance. You'll need to prove that you can manage that wealth responsibly. That involves psychological evaluations, financial coaching," and Mark paused, studying them both. "An agreement to mend familial relationships. That means you too, primarily." The weight of his words hung in the air, suffocating the hope Jack had just begun to nurture. Lily's breath caught in her throat. Mend familial relationships? How can he decide that? "We're family." "It was part of his will," Mark replied evenly. "If you refuse or try to bypass these conditions, you'll only receive a fraction of the estate. And I can assure you, plenty of people are willing to challenge you for it." Jack exchanged a glance with Lily. She looked troubled but also resolute. "So, what's a fraction?" she asked, her voice stronger than before. "Let's just say it's a life-changing amount, but nowhere near what you could inherit together." Frustration bubbled in Jack's chest. "It feels like a trap. We're being forced to comply with things that are not our fault," he said, his hands clenching into fists. "Consider it a chance at redemption," Mark said. "Your uncle wanted to ensure his legacy didn't cause more pain. He believed in second chances." A heavy silence fell between them, each wrestling with their emotions. The idea of an inherited burden felt suffocating, as if the money had gained weight, dragging them toward the ground. "Is this even possible?" Lily finally asked, her eyes bright with determination. "Can we really fix this?" Jack studied her, realizing they'd find out together. "Maybe, just maybe, they could turn this burden into a stepping stone." Mark leaned forward. "You have 1 month to get your act together. That's your window to prove you can overcome the past and each other. After that, it's out of my hands." Jack felt a rush of adrenaline. This was their shot not just at wealth but at healing. They had a choice to make. Lily squeezed his hand, and the fire in her gaze fueled him. "We can do this." But just as they clung to their newfound determination, Jack noticed a figure watching them from across the street. A woman, familiar yet distant. Her expression unreadable, leaving an unsettling knot in his stomach. "Who's that?" Jack muttered under his breath, feeling as though they were not just faced with family issues but shadows from the past that might rise to challenge them. What unexpected connection could throw them even deeper into chaos? Jack's heart raced as he squinted across the street. The woman stood there, a silhouette against the fading sun. There was something about her, a familiarity that chilled him. Lily noticed Jack's shift in mood and turned to follow his gaze. "Is she someone you know?" Lily asked, concern brewing in her voice. "I can't place her but I feel like I should," Jack muttered, his brows furrowing. The woman took a tentative step closer. Jack's pulse quickened. He remembered her, his childhood neighbor, or maybe just a girl from the old neighborhood. What was she doing here? "I need to find out," he said, suddenly filled with urgency. "Stay close." Lily nodded, biting her lip, and they approached the woman, who was now studying them intently. As they got closer, the woman's features sharpened under the golden light. Jack's throat tightened. "Rachel?" he breathed, disbelief flickering across his face. The woman's eyes widened, and just for a second, he saw a glimmer of the little girl who used to play hopscotch on the sidewalk. "Jack. I didn't think I'd see you again." It felt surreal, the echo of their shared past crashing back like a wave, flooding Jack with memories of laughter and innocence soaked in the shadow of family feuds and secrets. "What are you doing here?" he asked, his voice a mix of apprehension and curiosity. Rachel shifted nervously, fingers clutching the strap of her bag. "I saw you talking to Mark. I couldn't just walk away, not after everything that happened. I've been looking for you." "Looking for me? Why?" Jack felt the old awkwardness of their friendship bubbling back up, layered with years of silence. He glanced at Lily, who stood beside him, brows knitted. Rachel hesitated, searching for the right words. It's about your uncle and the money. Jack felt a jolt run through him. What do you mean? Just before he died, he wanted to tell you something. There's more tied to your inheritance than you realize. If you go through with this thing with Mark, it could change everything, she said, her voice low and cautious. Jack felt Lily's hand tighten around his. What are you saying? Lily asked, her voice steady but laced with urgency. Rachel drew a breath, her eyes darting to the street behind her as if afraid of being overheard. He had concerns about the will. Things he couldn't say, people he couldn't trust. He believed he was trying to protect you. Protect us? Jack echoed incredulously. From what? Rachel glanced around again, as if the weight of the words she carried threatened to spill. You shouldn't trust Mark. He's not just a lawyer. He has his own agenda. There's a reason your uncle left all these conditions. With each revelation, Jack's mind raced. Could they really be in more trouble than they thought? The idea of their salvation being laced with new dangers sent a chill through him. But even in the fear, a flicker of hope ignited. Could this old friend hold the key to their redemption? Lily stepped forward, a mix of determination and curiosity in her eyes. What do we need to do? Before Rachel could answer, a loud roar interrupted. The rumble of a motorcycle echoed from behind, cutting through the tension. Jack turned to see a figure dismounting with an air of confidence, removing a helmet that obscured his face. Looks like I'm not the only one looking for you, Rachel whispered, her expression shifting from concern to dread. Jack felt a new wave of tension ripple through the air. Who was this newcomer? What had they stumbled into? Stay close, he murmured to Lily, who was watching the approaching figure with a mix of intrigue and unease, and as the new arrival approached, Jack realized their gamble had only just begun, and the stakes were higher than they could ever have imagined. What secrets lurked behind those motorcycle handlebars, and could they take another hit before reaching the light of their inheritance? The figure stepped forward, his boots crunching against the sidewalk. Jack's heartbeat pounded in his ears as he tried to make out the newcomer's features. There was an edge to the man's movements, a confidence that suggested he was used to getting what he wanted. When he finally pulled off his helmet, Jack's stomach dropped. That it was Mark. Jack, the lawyer said, flashing a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. What a small world. And Rachel, of all people here too. His gaze flicked from Rachel to Lily, the weight of unsaid words stifling the heat of the summer evening. What do you want? Jack snapped, feeling Lily stiffen beside him. He felt Rachel's tension spike and sensed that this was not going to be a simple encounter. I was hoping to catch you before you made any big decisions, Mark said smoothly. I think it's time we all talked. Rachel shot Jack a pleading look, her brows furrowed. We don't have to listen to him, Jack, she urged, stepping forward as if to shield him. He's not here for your interests. Mark chuckled, a low, disarming sound. You think so? My job is to ensure that the terms of your uncle's will are fulfilled. I'd hate for anyone, especially family, to lose out on something they are rightfully owed. The will you're pushing is filled with loopholes. Jack shot back. Rachel just warned me. There's more going on that you haven't revealed. Mark's expression grew serious, eyes narrowing. I'm surprised you care about what she has to say. Last I checked, her family is hardly role models when it comes to trustworthiness. The implication hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Leave her out of this, Mark. Jack growled. Rage boiled in his chest, mixing with confusion. How did they get here? No clear path lay ahead. Was he about to step into a trap? Let us not get personal, Mark replied, keeping his tone cool. We all know this is about business. The stakes could not be higher. I just want you to understand the consequences of your actions. You mean your actions, Jack fired back, feeling the anger bubble but needing more than that. What are you hiding? Mark shrugged, a false innocence etched into his features. What I'm hiding? Or what you're about to find out? With those words, a shiver ran down Jack's spine. It sounded like a threat, something far grimmer than he wanted to acknowledge. He glanced back at Rachel, who looked ready to explode with a flurry of protests, and at Lily's unwavering gaze, expressing silent support. "Here's the thing, Jack," Mark continued, leaning in slightly. "Your uncle made some choices. Choices I need to guide you through, but if you reject my advice, I assure you, it won't just affect you." "What's that supposed to mean?" Jack pressed, his throat dry, the tension thickened. Mark's eyes darkened, and Jack felt an unease creeping through the air. "I think it's time you realize that the past isn't done with you. It's been following you all along, you just didn't know it," Mark said, a chilling finality in his tone. "What are you saying?" Jack challenged, but before he could get an answer, a sudden noise shattered the moment. A loud crash echoed as something heavy hit the ground nearby, drawing their attention. "What was that?" Lily murmured, eyes wide with surprise and concern. Jack felt the ominous sense of dread settle over them like a thick fog. Whatever was going on, it was spiraling out of control, and they were at the heart of something far more dangerous than they could have imagined. "Stay behind me," Jack commanded, instinctively stepping in front of Lily and Rachel as he scanned the street. Just then, from the shadows, a figure emerged, rushing toward them with an urgency that felt all wrong. Jack's heart thudded louder. What now? As the figure drew nearer, Jack held his breath, the wall of uncertainty closing in around him. Who would come next, and what shocking truths would unravel before them? The figure burst into view, panting and wild-eyed. It was a woman, disheveled and clutching something tightly in her hands. Jack squinted, trying to catch a glimpse of her face. He didn't know her, but the frantic energy radiating from her was palpable. "Help! You need to help me!" she shouted, her voice cutting through the haze of tension. Jack instinctively glanced at Rachel and Lily. He could see the confusion on their faces, mirroring his own. This was too much. First Mark, with his unsettling insinuations, and now this? "Who are you?" Jack demanded, stepping forward. "What happened?" The woman stumbled closer, struggling to breathe, panic etched across her features. "They're after me. I think they know about the will. I overheard them. Please, you have to listen." Mark watched with an unreadable expression, his smile gone. "What are you talking about?" he asked flatly, and something cold flickered in his eyes. Jack's chest tightened. There was so much at stake, and now this stranger was dropping a bombshell that made him question everything. "Who's after you?" Jack pressed, feeling urgency build inside of him. "I don't know their names. Just a shadowy group. They said my life would be ruined if I spoke out. They want to make sure the will goes through without a hitch. They know I've been digging up secrets." She paused, swiping away tears that were mingling with sweat on her brow. Rachel stepped forward, her protective instincts kicking in. "What secrets?" The woman glanced back nervously, then leaned closer, lowering her voice. "Your uncle, he wasn't the man you think he was. He had enemies. This whole thing, his death, the will, it's part of something much bigger." Jack's heart raced. "What do you mean?" "Playing obedient heirs is dangerous. Trust me." The woman barely managed to keep her voice steady. "You need to take precautions. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think they'll come for you next." "Why?" Jack's mind spun. He wanted to demand the truth, but this cascade of horror felt real, overwhelming. "Because the money comes with strings attached." "And your uncle? He made enemies with dangerous people. This isn't just about inheritance, this is survival." Jack exchanged a look with Rachel. Her eyes were wide with fear, and he sensed the same dread swirling inside him. "What do we do?" "Gather your allies. Trust only those who matter. You're going to need help," she trailed off, her gaze darting toward the shadows, and a sudden chill shot through the air. Mark stepped forward, but the woman backed away. "Stay away from me," she cried, panic infused into every syllable. Enough. Mark's voice boomed, dropping the facade of civility. We can handle this without involving her. He pointed straight at Jack. You should listen to me. I'm the only one who can help you navigate this mess. No. They're coming, and you can't trust him. The woman yelled, her voice rising. Panic broke in her eyes as she looked down a side street, as if sensing something ominous. Jack felt a knot of terror in his gut. The chaos around him had reached a fever pitch. We can't ignore this. Suddenly, a dark SUV screeched to a halt at the end of the street. The door swung open, and a figure in a suit jumped out, scanning the area. Run! The woman shouted. Jack's pulse raced. What the hell is going on? Without thinking, he reached for Rachel and Lily, pulling them close. We need to move now. As they turned to flee, a mix of hope and dread surged through Jack. Would they outrun whatever was closing in on them, or was this just the beginning? They sprinted down the street, the urgency behind them echoing louder than their footfalls. The truth felt closer than ever, but would it save them, or consume them instead? They darted into an alley, heartbeats thrumming like war drums, fear driving them forward. Jack could feel the cold sweat on his brow as he glanced back, trying to gauge how far behind the figure in the suit was. The dark SUV parked ominously at the street corner felt like a monster waiting to pounce. Where do we go? Rachel gasped, her voice strained. Lily, clutching Jack's hand, wore a look of confusion and terror. Jack knew they couldn't just aimlessly run, they had to think. Over there. Jack pointed to a small door at the end of the alley. It was partially ajar. They stumbled toward it, adrenaline making their legs feel like lead and feathers all at once. The woman had urged them to gather their allies, but how could they focus on anything other than the immediate threat? Jack shoved the door open and they rushed through. Inside, it was dark and musty, the scent of dampness hanging in the air. He could barely see Rachel and Lily behind him, but he felt the weight of their fear. Close the door. Rachel hissed, urgency lacing her voice. They pressed it shut just as a faint noise echoed from the alley behind them, a shout, harsh and commanding. They huddled together, silence wrapping around them like a thick blanket. Jack strained to listen, breaths held tight. He could feel the tension radiating through his family. He needed answers, but time seemed to stretch like a rubber band, taut and ready to snap at any moment. What do we do now? Lily whispered, eyes wide and glistening. Jack turned to face them, determination igniting within him. We have to figure out what this is about. The will, the enemy's everything. Rachel shook her head. How can we even trust what that woman said? For all we know, she could have been lying to throw us off. Or maybe she was telling the truth, Jack said, his voice steady. There's too much at stake. We can't let fear paralyze us. They shared a moment, contemplating all that had been thrust upon them. The image of their uncle's final days, the will that had unfolded so dramatically, the sudden arrival of danger, it was all one relentless storm, and they were caught right in the middle. The noise outside began to fade, but dread settled heavier on Jack's shoulders. He wanted to take action, but the clarity of the situation was hazy. They needed a plan, something solid in this turmoil. A beam of light broke through the cracks of the old door, shadows creeping along the walls. Jack squinted, his instincts firing up. We can't stay here long. We need to find a safe place where we can think and maybe even contact someone who can help. Rachel nodded, finally catching the weight of his words. But who can we trust? Mark, he's involved somehow, I can feel it. But that woman, she could be right. Lily's trembling voice interrupted. What if they come here? What if they find us? Jack crouched down, meeting Lily's eyes. We want to let that happen, okay? We stick together, no matter what. We'll find a way out. Suddenly, a noise echoed from outside, unmistakable and demanding their attention. Someone was trying to force their way into the building. Locking eyes with Rachel and Lily, an unspoken agreement passed between them. Run, he commanded softly. We have to get to the back exit before the door slammed open, splintering the still air with chaos. A figure stepped inside, silhouetted against the dim light. Jack's heart plummeted. Please, just hear me out. It was Mark, but before Jack could process who to trust, the shadows shifted, and another figure appeared behind Mark. Everything inside Jack screamed to flee, but curiosity anchored him to the ground. The truth loomed over them like a specter. What did Mark want now? And more importantly, what did it all mean for their survival? Mark? Jack managed, the name hanging in the air between them like a dare. Confusion swirled in his mind, threading through the raw fear still pulsating from moments before. Mark stepped forward, a mix of desperation and panic etched on his face. Listen, you have to trust me, he said, his voice barely above a whisper, yet heavy with urgency. I didn't know they would come after you. I thought it was safe. What are you talking about? Rachel spat, stepping protectively in front of Lily. She was trembling, but her fierceness shone through the fear. Mark shook his head, glancing nervously over his shoulder. They know about the will. The money, it's not just an inheritance, it's a target. You're in danger. Jack felt a sudden surge of anger. You knew something was wrong, didn't you? You brought us into this mess. No, Mark insisted, his eyes darting around the cramped room. I swear, I wouldn't have if I'd known. But we don't have time for this. They could be right behind me. Jack hesitated. He could see the worry etched into Mark's features, but distrust lingered like smoke. Who are they? And why should we believe you now? Before Mark could answer, the shadow of a figure loomed in the doorway behind him. A tall man, dressed sharply in a dark suit, entered, eyes scanning the dimly lit space. Jack's heart raced again, adrenaline flooding his system once more. Mark turned, panic lacing his features. Run! He shouted as he shoved Jack, Rachel, and Lily toward the back of the room. Get out! Mark shouted again, his voice strained as he turned, blocking the entrance with his body. Who is that? Jack yelled, dread pooling in his stomach. I don't know. Just move. Mark yelled back, his determination fierce. They rushed toward a narrow exit at the back of the room, fearing that every second spent standing still might seal their fate. Jack held Lily tightly, knowing they had to stick together, but his mind raced. Who could they trust? As they burst through the door and into another alley, the night air hit them like a shockwave. Jack barely had time to think before he felt a tug on his sleeve. Rachel was still close behind them, glancing back toward Mark with a mix of dread and worry. Where do we go? Lily cried, her voice high and scared. Anywhere but here. Jack snapped, pushing on, heart pounding as he scanned his surroundings. The streets were nearly empty, dimly lit by flickering streetlights, creating an eerie atmosphere. We aren't safe yet, Jack muttered, as he led them down the alley, looking for an ebb in the shadows where they could breathe. But that wasn't the only thing weighing on his mind. Mark had known about the danger, that much was clear. So what about the woman's warning? Was she right? Jack, what if they find us? Rachel's voice was trembling again, the weight of everything overwhelming. We're not stopping. Not yet. He glanced back, half expecting the suited man to come barreling around the corner. Then Rachel added, what did Mark mean about the money? This isn't just about us, is it? Jack shook his head, feeling the puzzle pieces fall into an incomprehensible chaos. I don't know. But we need to figure this out fast before whoever that was catches up with us. Just then, a loud crash echoed from behind them. Jack's gut twisted as he turned. They were closer than he had thought. The pit of fear grew, replacing the last shreds of hope. Suddenly, Jack spotted a diner across the street, its neon sign flickering. There. He pointed. We can hide there. Let us go. No longer thinking, fueled by raw instinct and desperation, they dashed across the street. But as they reached the door, it swung open, revealing a woman with piercing eyes and a knowing smile, her stance commanding yet inviting. "You've come to the right place," she said softly. Jack locked eyes with her, a shiver crawling up his spine. Who was she? Did she know everything, or was she just another dangerous player in this unfolding game? He hesitated, but the danger was palpable behind them, closing in fast. "What do we do?" he muttered, hopeful for an answer. "Trust me for now," she said, the flickering neon light casting shadows on her face, somehow both reassuring and alarming at the same time. As they stepped through the door, Jack felt the gravity of the moment. Were they diving into safety or straight into the jaws of further danger? Only time would tell, and time was something they didn't have. The diner's interior was dim, a stark contrast to the chaos outside. The smell of coffee and greasy food wafted through the air, providing the slightest comfort. Jack felt a strange mix of relief and anxiety wash over him as they stepped inside. His instincts screamed at him to run, but the woman's presence seemed to carve out a temporary refuge. "Sit," she commanded, her voice gentle yet firm, directing them to a booth in the corner. Jack followed her lead, pushing Lily and Rachel down onto the vinyl seats before sliding in beside them. The woman took a seat across from them, her gaze steady and assessing. "Can you tell us what's going on?" Jack demanded, his voice low but edged with tension. The pounding of his heart echoed in his ears. "Nobody said it would be easy," she replied cryptically, an enigmatic smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "But you need to understand the stakes. The money you inherited isn't just a fortune, it ties you to a web of danger and deception." Jack's brow furrowed. "How do you know about that?" "I know more than you think." Her eyes flicked over his shoulder towards the door, scanning for threats. "You're being hunted because of that inheritance." Rachel leaned in closer, her voice barely a whisper. "Who's hunting us? And why?" "People who want that money for themselves," the woman replied, her tone shifting. "They'll go to any lengths." Fear knotted in Jack's stomach as he thought about what Mark had said. This was real. It wasn't just a twisted game or an unfortunate coincidence. They were being targeted because of something they had no control over. He glanced at Lily, who was clinging to Rachel's arm, her little face scrunched in confusion. "It's not fair," Lily said, her voice cracking. "We didn't ask for any of this." The woman's expression softened slightly. "No, you didn't. But the world doesn't always play fair, especially in matters of wealth and power. What do we do now?" Jack felt a knot in his throat tightening. His protective instincts surged. He had to keep them safe. "I can help you," the woman said, leaning forward slightly. "But you need to trust me. I have resources that can make your next move safer. But you're going to have to act fast and without hesitation." Jack exchanged a look with Rachel, uncertainty flooding his mind. Could they really trust this stranger? "Why should we?" Jack asked, his voice firm. "You could very well be leading us into a trap." The woman chuckled softly, almost bemused. "I can assure you, if I wanted to hurt you, I wouldn't be wasting my time here. I'd have taken action already." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "But if you don't act now, it could be too late." A sudden crash broke the tense moment. They all turned towards the entrance. The tall man from earlier stood silhouetted against the door, a malevolent smile creeping up his face as he surveyed the diner. Jack's heart raced. They hadn't found them, had they? "Time's up," the woman said, and Jack could see a flash of concern cross her face. "We need to move now." "Where?" Rachel asked, her voice shaking again. "Follow me." The woman slid out of the booth with a calmness that belied the urgency of the situation. "Trust me." The group squeezed out hastily, Jack's protective hand instinctively grasping Lily's small shoulder as they followed closely behind the woman, fleeing towards the back of the diner. Jack could feel the shadows of danger looming closer. His mind raced with questions. Was there really a way out of this? How deep did this rabbit hole go? As they pushed through a door that led to a narrow hallway, Jack caught sight of the suited man moving toward the rest of the diner, eyes locked onto their retreating forms. "Keep moving," the woman whispered urgently. Jack felt the weight of the moment. They had to trust her, despite the unseen risks. But with every step, he feared what awaited them next. Would they find safety, or would their flight only lead them deeper into peril? "Who exactly are you?" Jack finally blurted, desperation bubbling over. Her expression turned serious as she paused. "That's a story for another time if we survive this." Jack exchanged glances with Rachel, realizing they were standing on the precipice of something much bigger than themselves. And just like that, his heart sank. Was he ready to embrace the unknown? They slipped through the narrow hallway until the woman led them to a small emergency exit. "Stay close," she whispered as she nudged the door open, the cool night air rushing in, merging with the heat of their anxiety. Jack's heart thudded in his chest, the urgency palpable. They rushed into the dark, their senses heightened. He could hear his breath and feel the steadying pulse of Lily beside him. She leaned into him, her small frame shaking just a little. Together, they took off toward the back alley, avoiding the shadow of danger they had just escaped. "Where now?" Rachel asked, urgency threading her voice. "Somewhere safe, somewhere hidden," the woman replied, glancing around, her expression steady yet alert. Jack admired her composure, but he felt a pit in his gut. The looming feeling of mistrust still clouded their every decision. "Who are you, really?" Jack asked, forcing the question out now that they had space to breathe. "Why are you helping us?" "I know more than just your inheritance," she began, but suddenly Jack noticed something shifting in her posture. "Follow me." The way she led them, with purpose and conviction, sparked a flicker of hope in Jack. Maybe she did know something that could pull them from this spiral. They ducked into a nearby building, a vacant warehouse barely lit from the moonlight filtering through grimy windows. Jack couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. His instincts screamed to stay alert. "Wait," Jack said, pausing the group in the middle of the main room, filled with shadows and dust. "What's your plan?" "You're saying we're in danger because of this money, but what should we do now?" The woman took a deep breath, her eyes narrowing thoughtfully. "I'll help you figure out how to play your cards right. We can expose this situation for what it is, a trap. But you have to trust me to lead the way." Just as Jack opened his mouth to respond, they heard it receding footsteps echoing from the outside. His throat tightened. "Are they coming?" "They're relentless," she said quietly, fear washing over her calm. "If they find us here, the whole operation could blow up." Jack felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on him like a heavy cloak. Lily clutched his hand, her trust in him palpable. "We need to act," he encouraged. "What do we need to do?" The woman's gaze hardened, determination flashing in her eyes. "We'll gather evidence against Mark and anyone else involved. Then we can take this to the authorities. It's the only way to reclaim your lives." "Do we have time?" Rachel asked, anxiously looking at the entrance. "Yes," the woman insisted. "We just need the pieces. Jack, you must remember everything about your uncle's will and any interactions you had with Mark. There are threads to pull." "All right," Jack said, shaking off the fear. He dove into his memory, recalling the days spent signing documents, and Mark's frequent visits. "We were given the will and there were conversations about conditions." "Yes, the conditions," the woman urged, encouraging his thoughts. "Those are crucial. And if Mark cut corners, he'd be the first link to all this deception. You need to find flaws in his story." Jack nodded, resolve building within him. "But what if we're wrong? What if he truly had our best interests at heart?" The woman leaned closer, her voice low. "Did the best man put you in danger? Or let you step into a trap? Trust your gut." Something clicked in Jack's mind. If Mark is involved, then we can't trust him at all. We'll gather everything we can, and if we find loopholes, we expose him. "Yes." Rachel's voice flickered with renewed hope, but just as they began recounting every detail, a loud bang echoed behind them. Someone had breached the building. The sound reverberated through the air like a gunshot, forcing Jack's adrenaline into overdrive again. Hide! The woman instructed sharply. They darted behind a stack of crates, hearts racing, managing to drown out the fear with resolve. They held their breaths as the silhouette moved closer, its heaviness like a predator prowling the shadows. Jack felt the tight grip of Lily's hand as he scanned for an escape route, desperation overtaking every clear thought. The figure entered the room. Mark. Jack's heart raced, but the fury built inside of him simmered, boiling just beneath the surface. What do you want? He hissed from behind the wooden blocks. Mark's expression shifted from confusion to threat. You don't want to make this difficult, he spat, his confidence wavering. Step out now, and I might forget you've been snooping. We're not moving a step, Jack demanded, adrenaline surging through him. If you think you control us enough. Mark cut him off. You're playing with fire. Jack's heart pounded ferociously, but in that moment, he wouldn't back down. If you want to control the situation, you'll have to fight us for it. Mark laughed coldly, but Jack could see beneath the bravado. The man was nervous. You have no idea what you're dealing with, he hissed. The truth, Jack. It'll ruin you. Whatever truth you hold, I'll face it, Jack shot back. Together. We're family. As Mark moved closer, Jack felt the surge of unity rush through him and his family. They would fight for each other, regardless of the stakes. He flashed a look at Rachel and Lily, and they nodded, determined to stand together. Then let us begin, Mark said, his voice dipped in menace. But remember, every choice has consequences. Choose wisely. In that moment, Jack finally understood. They weren't just fighting for the inheritance, they were fighting for their lives, their bond, and their future. And whatever lay ahead, they would face it together. The battle lines were drawn, and as they stepped out of the shadows, each knowing they weren't alone, a fierce determination took root. The past had returned with demands, but this time, they would rise stronger than before. In this fight for truth, redemption, and family, they were ready. This was just the beginning, and now, as the stakes grew higher, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories that will unfold. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and let us know you're all in. Comment your thoughts and feelings about this thrilling turn of events. And for those who need to witness this inspiring transformation, don't wait not even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who would appreciate this journey. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.